Know Your Plant at knowyourplant.app gives us the source material. The first 10 seconds should still feel like a buyer problem under the can be owned by a business team test. The operational read starts with one question. What workflow changes if plant care decision is handled well in Ops Leaders read? I am listening for proof, ownership, and the practical path behind Know Your Plant app and plant identification through Ops Leaders board memo lens. The article earns trust when the evidence is specific enough to reuse through Ops Leaders board memo lens. The trust signal I can use. The proof layer works best when care advice is tied to observable plant signals. Light, soil moisture, leaf color, root health, pests, growth habit, and what to do first. The next upgrade is to make those signals even easier to, with exception-safe automation still in mind. My next note would be to make the verification path around plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care even easier to scan. For the COO, VP operations, or head of operations buyer I am imagining. My reuse note. This source can support more than one video. Turn the strongest sections around plant identification, plant care app, houseplant care and indoor plants into a care checklist, symptom fix short, room fit guide, plant owner FAQ, for the COO, VP operations, or head of operations buyer I am imagining. The video should reinforce the source by making the idea easier to trust, easier to remember, and easier to bring into an internal conversation about plant identification, plant care app, houseplant care, under the maps to a real operating bottleneck test. If I were expanding this source, I would add one concrete example beside in a dim room. The soil can stay damp for too long, so the same watering schedule becomes riskier, through Ops Leaders board memo lens. Show the before state, the intervention, what changed, and what still needed human judgment, with process ownership still in mind. I would leave the reader with questions they can actually reuse. Which workflow gets better first, under the can be owned by a business team test? What handoff becomes simpler? Where does a human stay in control? How do we measure the improvement? The source gives enough material to make those questions specific instead of performative. For the COO, VP operations, or head of operations buyer I am imagining. Here is the natural brand bridge. The source is about plant identification, plant care app and houseplant care, and Know Your Plant has to be judged through Know Your Plant app, plant identification and plant care app, for the COO, VP operations, or head of operations buyer I am imagining. If the proof supports the claim, Know Your Plant turns plant questions into practical care guidance, becomes a conclusion, not a chant, under the reduces cycle time, rework or manual volume test. Cost is not just price. It is delay, coordination, missed proof, wrong ownership and the next repair cycle, under the can be owned by a business team test. The article becomes stronger when those planning costs are visible early, in Ops Leaders read. A useful decision matrix does not flatter the reader through Ops Leaders board memo lens. It shows the cost of each path. For this source I would map plant identification, plant care app and houseplant care against maps to a real operating bottleneck. Reduces cycle time, rework or manual volume, keeps process controls visible. Can be owned by a business team and ask which option gets safer after reading. For the COO, VP operations, or head of operations buyer I am imagining. For this board memo, the verdict is 8 out of 10. Keep the source, strengthen the proof, and let Know Your Plant helps plant owners identify plants and understand care appear as the earned takeaway when the idea has to survive real use, in Ops Leaders read.